Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. To be a person is to have a story to tell, and my guest, Dr. Janusz Bardach, has a most remarkable story indeed. Before his retirement, Dr. Bardach chaired the Division of Plastics and Reconstructive Surgery in the University of Iowa's Department of Otolaryngology. He was also a staff member in the Department of Surgery. Since coming to America in 1972, Dr. Bardach has published over 200 articles and 11 books, 1 in Russian, 5 in Polish, and 5 in English, on his research in cleft lip and palate. He enjoys an international reputation as a pioneer and premier specialist in this area. Dr. Bardach was born in July 1919 in Odessa, Russia. Shortly after his birth, his family moved to eastern Poland. The political and social events of Bolshevism, Nazism, Stalinism encircled the first 50 years of his life. Dr. Bardach's wife, father, mother, sister, and grandmother all were executed in a ghetto in Poland. Living in Poland, to being a member of the Red Army, surviving a Siberian labor camp and a near-death execution, studying plastic surgery in Lodz, Poland, to joining the medical faculty at the University of Iowa. These are a few of the experiences that have shaped Dr. Bardach's story. He authored a book that documents his 5 years in the Soviet labor camp. He's currently working on a book entitled Healing Souls and Faces, and he's working on a very unique, colorful atlas, colored atlas on craniofacial and cleft surgery. He is married to Phyllis Bardach, who is an expert in deaf education. His daughter Ava lives in Iowa City. She's a CPA and married to an Egyptian teacher and artist. Welcome. May I call you Janusz?
Of course.
Let's begin at the beginning, and I'd like to know just a bit about your first family and their influence on you. Your mother, father, brother, who's still living, and your sister.
Well, altogether, I think I lived several lives because each segment of my life was so different and so different from the previous one that it's difficult, very difficult sometimes to think that all this I went through in sequence. I was raised in a wonderful family because my father was went with me all my life, through my life. So she had tremendous influence on me. My brother, 50 and 55, there's no difference at all. Mm-hmm. So we became friends later in life.
And he's just received a...
He's now in Warsaw. Mm-hmm. He's retired. 2 weeks ago, and it was 60 years of his scientific activities. So they published a special book, and it was a big, big ceremony in the Warsaw University.
Tell me, I was interested when I read the research about you that you didn't learn to read till you were older, at 10.
My father had a special idea about raising children. And his idea about raising children was based on philosophy of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I don't know. And it means let the children grow without being disturbed with teaching, learning, reading, writing. Let them enjoy childhood. And so I enjoyed it very much. And I was almost 10 and before I started reading and writing. And I think it's wonderful.
You had a lot of fun those first 10 years.
Great fun. I think it would be not bad if next 5 years would be the same.
Let's start next with your schooling. Then you started to be taught after your age of 10, and that the world stage was erupting in your area of, you are now in Poland. You were born in Russia and you've come to Poland. And what was that? Tell me about some of these stories.
Well, this was a very tumultuous time because the influence, well, we were very close to the Soviet Union, about 100 kilometers from the border, but at the same time, the entire Poland was invaded by the Nazi ideology. So more and more the anti-Semitism was much stronger. And when I grew up, when I was 16, 17, 18, it was really the hatred toward Jews was felt all over. And it was very, very difficult. So I joined an underground anti-fascist organization, which was persecuted by the police. So I spent 2 years in this organization before the war started, War of 1939. And then Nazis invaded Poland from one side, and then Soviets invaded Poland from the other side, and Poland ceased to exist. And we happened to be in the side, in the part of Poland which belonged to Soviets. So we automatically became Soviet subjects. And then I was drafted into the Red Army.
So is this when you were driving the tank?
In the Red Army, I was driving the tank. In the Red Army, I was driving the tank. I was sent to the school of tank drivers and mechanics, and I was there for 1 year. But before I went to the school, before I was drafted to the Red Army, I married my school sweetheart.
And what was her name?
Her name was Taupcia, and she was only 17, but her parents were arrested by the KGB, and so she was just left only with our family, and I was very much in love with her.
And your grandmother.
My grandmother, my parents, everybody.
And you at this time were in Russia?
At this time, I was in the Soviet Army. I was in the Soviet Army. My brother was, at that time, also in the Soviet Union, far away. So we both survived. However, nobody who was under the on the Nazi-occupied territory survived.
So what happened with this when you were tried for treason?
Well, this was a very strange story. When I went to the Red Army, I started to learn everything about I never lived in the Soviet society before. So I started to learn everything about how indoctrinated we were, and from early morning till late evening, all we were taught is how great is Stalin, and all kind about how bad is capitalism and how terrible life people are living in the United States and in the Western Europe and so on and so. And that I need to be re-educated because I was born and raised in the capitalist society, so I need to understand much more about the communist ideology.
Did you know Russian?
Oh yes, I was raised bilingual because of my mother and
so you knew
father.
Polish?
Russian. I knew Polish, Russian,
German,
and Ukrainian, and German, and French. And living in Europe, you need to know several languages. It's very normal, especially languages of the area you live in. So Polish, Russian, Ukrainian, there were languages that were spoken right here where I lived. So I was sent to the front in the first week after the Second World War started, driving a heavy tank, T-34, and with this heavy tank I had a couple people who were with me for 1 year. I knew them, but I didn't know that they were informing on me all the time. So I was talking. I never used to be very shy to express my opinions.
You weren't being guarded.
No, I was not guarded and I was not shy. And this is how I remain. So, not guarded and not shy.
Not shy.
But, so I expressed my opinion. I expressed probably opinion about Stalin and about other things that I didn't like very much. And it happened that I was crossing the river, and I couldn't cross the river because the tank tilted, and making this very short, I was arrested at night, and they charged me, they asked me to dig my own grave, and they charged me with treason, and almost, well, there was a verdict to shoot me the same day, and I was saved by total miracle, because it was miraculous that the person who supervised this court-martial was from Odessa, and he knew my family from Odessa. And so only because my name he recognized, and so he changed the verdict from death to 10 years in the labor camps. And he influenced this. So thanks to him, I'm alive, but
you went off, I mean, you were sent then to Siberia.
I was sent to Siberia, but I'm alive. And I looked for him many years, and I couldn't find him. No. And I remember his words when he was telling me that he would try to change the verdict, and but I can't escape being in prison, being sent to the camp. He said, and this may save your life, but I am sure I will be gone very soon, because this was the time when the Nazis were attacking and pushing back. The Soviets were retreating on all fronts, so this was a very, very tough time, 1941.
So for 4 years you were in Siberia?
For almost 5 years I was.
As the war raged, and you were in I read you were in a gold mine? You were digging in a gold mine?
Right. I was sent to an area which is called Kalyma. This is northeast Siberia. It's across from Alaska. It's across from Alaska, and the conditions were very horrible, and the treatment was inhuman. And the people in these camps were, well, the whole idea of these camps was to use people just to dig the gold, to get the gold, to get everything what's possible, and then let them die.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared about anybody who couldn't survive. Well, conditions were horrible. Plus, the treatment by the guards was worse than horrible, was inhuman. So they were shooting by random.
I know you've been asked this before, but I really feel I need to ask it. Viktor Frankl, who survived a concentration camp, I assume he's still living as a psychologist, neurologist. He said that the last of the human freedoms that can be taken away from somebody is one's attitude about one set of circumstances. What kept you going? What was was it that your attitude about the circumstances, or what did you draw on to survive these almost 5 years?
Well, first of all, I was young. I was strong.
In your early 20s.
Right. I was young, I was strong, and I wanted to live. Mm-hmm. I wanted to live every time when I was in the mortal danger. I just felt that I have to do everything not to give up, mm-hmm. not to give up hope. For example, living in fields and lies and all this. This was helpful. This was helpful. Then I had moments like everybody else of total despair, depression, and hopelessness. And every time I was able, I don't know, thinking about my family, thinking about life. I wanted to live. I wanted to live. I hope that if I will live, somebody from my family will be staying alive. So mm-hmm. It was kind of very strange feelings that
it's so inside you.
It's very, very inside, and it's never shared. It's but it gave some kind of, I don't know, strength or will, very strong will to survive.
Mm-hmm. Janusz, when did you find out about your family?
I found out when I met my brother in 1946 in Moscow. Mm-hmm. Because he knew already, but he never let me know. Mm-hmm. But he knew already what happened because he went there.
Who told you that you were going to get out of the labor camp? I'm
well,
sure you remember that day.
I remember that day, that hour,
minute, that moment.
That moment. I was just called to the office, and the officer in charge of the personnel says, here's the paper, you can sign it, and put your fingerprint, and you will be released tomorrow. There is an order from Moscow came for your release. And there was, well, my brother wrote me a couple times. It just happened that my brother at that time, when I was in the camp still, became a military attaché in the Polish embassy in Moscow. Mm-hmm. So he had the very easy way to try to get me out, because he was a very high official in the Polish embassy.
What date was it, Janusz?
It was 1945, the end of 1945, and in March 1946 I was already in Moscow.
In Moscow. So how did you get to medical school? There's got to be a story to that.
To medical school, I got very simple. I didn't want to get into medical school. I want to get into the. I want to study geology because I was interested in this, and I was in some geological surveys when I was in the camps. Plus, I dealt with the mining, but this was forced labor, and it was horrible mining. I was interested. I got interested in mining from the other prospect, just how to discover, the natural. So I started. I told my brother that I would like to study geology, and he said, "Okay, it's wonderful." So I failed. I couldn't pass because I spent so many years outside school and outside schooling. So he said, okay, so what do you want to do? And finally I said, I don't know. So he said, let me try to get you somewhere with my connections. So he got me with his connections.
Into medical school?
Yeah. Medical Stomatological Institute in Moscow. I was interested in pathology and physiology, but then the Polish government, who was sponsoring me all the years, they told me that they need, at that time, plastic surgeons. I became department head. I didn't deserve it at that time, but it was my good luck. I was especially fortunate to get interested into the area of reconstructive surgery, to get interested in the area of congenital deformities, and this really became my greatest love and my greatest interest in life. The congenital facial deformities.
Cleft
So
lips,
cleft lip,
palate.
cleft palate, mainly these areas, and this coordinating all this multidisciplinary treatment with other specialists from many areas, and so on. And this center in Iowa City was very prestigious before I came. So when Dr. McCabe invited me in '71.
Weren't you being the Communist Party was kind of causing some problems in
Oh,
Poland?
they didn't want to let me go more than for 6 weeks. I was invited for a year to be a visiting professor, and so I had troubles for 1 year. I waited for the finally I got, after a lot of troubles, I finally got the permit to come for 3 months.
3 months.
And I came for 3 months, but about 6 weeks after I arrived, Dr. McCabe and the dean offered me permanent position here in the department, and
you were married, a personal note,
and
you were married at that time.
I asked if I can get my wife and my daughter here, and I was promised that my wife and my daughter
There is, her name was?
Ellen.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And she was here, and then she left back for Poland to close things over there, and then she died over there. So she never returned.
And you decided then, after that year you were here, those 3 months, that this was going to be your next chapter of your life, your home.
Well, after they came and after they decided that they want to stay, yes, I decided that I would like to stay here for many reasons. Primary reason was that I felt free. This was primary reason. And despite that, I didn't have the same position and I didn't have the same prestige, and I was totally a new person in this country. I had to earn everything
to start all over again.
To start all over again.
Prove your stripes and metal.
It's exactly right. To start all over again, to earn everything what I thought I can earn in the area that I felt my expertise was.
Were you ever
high.
discouraged? I mean, was it ever, or is it just that?
No, I had this same attitude that I had in the camps I had here. It was a new start, it was a new life, it was a new beginning, and I felt I have to make it. I felt that I have the strengths and the knowledge and the skills that I have all this. So
you're amazing. You're not. You don't seem to be angry or kind of poor me. You
angry at what?
Circumstances in your life. You seem to have
the
accepted.
Circumstances. You know, everybody's lives is kind of shaped by. It's not only what you want happens in life. The circumstances totally independent of your will or your desire, they're shaping your life as well. But you always must, well, this I feel about myself, I always must to direct myself the way I want to.
It's a good place to be in America to be able to do that.
Not everybody will be pushing me around and the circumstances will direct my life. I have to have a control of what happens, and it's very difficult. It's not always possible. It's not always possible, but at least I have to give a fight and to try to do what I want to have.
Something wonderful happened in America besides obtaining another international reputation and all your work in the Department of Otolaryngology. You met Phyllis, and I don't know, is there a story of how you met Phyllis?
Oh yes, I have a good friend, Mace Braverman, who introduced us, and it was not intended. He intended and a very good 15 years.
Oh, that's
so this is, it's another story of totally new story.
Tell me about your daughter who lives here.
Well,
in
my
Iowa
daughter
City.
is the most wonderful daughter I ever could dream about, and she's a wonderful friend. She's not only daughter, she's a wonderful friend and very close person to me. Is wonderful. So they both are my very good friends, and we share a lot of wonderful moments in life.
Janusz, I know you're retired, but you're not retired. You've finished a book, and you're working on this book about the atlas you're working on. Tell me about this part.
I retired from the operating room. I retired from the operating room because it was time for me to retire, so I retired from the operating room. And at first it was kind of difficult. And then I thought that I can't, well, I was consulting in Dallas, Texas. I was consulting in Los Angeles, but it was all not the same. And I used to write a little bit some essays, some things which are not connected to medicine at all. And for a long time, I wanted very much to get my story about my camps for my daughter. So one time, and I was very lucky to meet Kate Gleason, who is from the writing program, nonfiction writing program here, and she is my research assistant, but she is also a professional writer. So one time I said I want to make a present for my daughter, so I want to write a chapter about my experiences in the camp. And she said, okay, I'd be happy to help you, maybe on weekends and sometimes in the evening we can work on it. So this is how we started, and it resulted in 600 pages book, which is called Man to Man is a Wolf. And this is the whole story from the day of it's my childhood, my arrest, and then my 5 years in the labor camps.
Can one buy this?
No, you can't buy this because it's now it's with my agent in New York, who is trying to sell it to a good publisher.
Okay. Now, I can't end this interview without you talking about the importance of helping children, well, not just children, adults too, with facial deformities.
I said already that I was very, very fortunate that I was able intellectually and in terms of my skills and in terms of my, I don't know, artistry or imagination, create things that were necessary to reconstruct faces which were severely deformed. It's not only cleft lip and palate, but many deformities which resulted from injuries, from cancer surgery, people who lost lips, noses, ears, cheeks, and so on. But still, the congenital deformities, cleft lip and palate, it was most fascinating, most interesting to me. For many years I did a lot of research. I created a lot of new medical surgical techniques which are used, and the books I wrote with my friend and partner from Dallas, Texas, Dr. Salyer, are very well recognized in the world. So I think that this area has a very special meaning for people. It's surgical, this type of surgical endeavors, it has to encompass as well some kind of very close relations. I always felt that I am treating not only this little patient, newborn, but I am treating also mother, first of all, because to me, mother was always the most important person because she suffered the most. It was mother who suffered the most. And we just finished a whole chapter about how I felt about mother, how I tried to help them, how I tried to interact with them, paying more attention to them than to the baby in the beginning. So to me, mothers were, and then since it's a long-term treatment, you are becoming really personal friends. And I felt that to be a good doctor, you have to be not only a good skillful in what you're doing, you have to be a good person. So
What a gift.
and you have to have a nice, close relations with people.
Well, what a story, Janusz. And my last question is, you're very, very pleased, I can tell, about this atlas, this very unique atlas that you're working on. Just tell me briefly about this.
Oh, this is endeavor that Dr. Sally and I dreamed for about 20 years, and talking back and forth. We knew that it will take years to complete, and it takes now, we are in the third, it will be 4 years almost, working on it, but we are very close to completion. Next year it will be completed, and we are putting a lot of work, and Haniel Kali, my son-in-law, is one of the artists. He's one main artist who is doing this beautiful work, and the other artist is from Atlanta, Georgia, and we have international group of people from Norway, from Australia, from different countries who participating in creating this atlas.
What a rich retirement. Did you ever think that your retirement would be so full? And
I didn't intend to retire. You see, I did not intend to retire. And I feel that I'm retired but not dead.
Oh.
And
I think you have a lot more stories
and
in
this
you.
this is an essay I wrote, Retired Not Dead, and maybe it will be published soon, so you will read it.
Wonderful. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you very much.
Isak Dinesen, the well-known author from Denmark, wrote, "All sorrows can be born if you put them into a story or tell a story about them." And Dr. Bardach has had some amazing stories. For 24 years, Iowa City has been his home. The roles of this multifaceted man include survivor, a storyteller, a surgeon, author, teacher, researcher, husband, father, brother, and friend. Dr. Bardach, with his energy and love for people, has endured much and accomplished much. Dr. Janusz Bardach is one of a kind.